December 1963. Cedars-Sinai Hospital, Los Angeles. A 7-year-old girl named Emily Carter was dying. Leukemia. Terminal. She had maybe a week left. Her last wish was simple: meet Frank Sinatra. Her parents wrote letters, made phone calls, got nowhere. Hospital policy was strict. No celebrity visitors in critical care. Too disruptive, too risky. Then at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night, Frank Sinatra walked through the emergency room entrance unannounced. When security tried to stop him, he said 5 words that changed everything. "I'm here for Emily Carter." What happened in the next hour didn't just break hospital rules, it changed how Cedars-Sinai treated dying children forever. This is that story. Emily Carter was born in Pasadena in 1956. Normal childhood, until age 5, when the bruises started appearing. Her mother, Helen, thought Emily was just clumsy, but the bruises got worse, then the fevers, then the exhaustion. The diagnosis came in October 1963. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Advanced. The doctors at Cedars-Sinai gave Emily 6 months, maybe. By December, Emily was in the pediatric critical care unit, quarantined. Her immune system was destroyed by chemotherapy. Any infection could kill her. Hospital policy was absolute: no outside visitors, except immediate family. No exceptions. Emily's father, Robert Carter, was a mechanic. Helen was a seamstress. They weren't connected, weren't wealthy, but they loved their daughter with everything they had. In early December, Emily's condition worsened. The doctors told Helen and Robert to prepare. Maybe a week, maybe less. "Is there anything we can do for her?" Helen asked. "Anything to make her comfortable." The doctor shook his head. "Just be with her, talk to her, let her know she's loved." That night, Helen sat beside Emily's bed. Emily was barely conscious, weak, small, but she opened her eyes. "Mama? I'm here, baby. Can I ask you something? Anything? Could I meet Frank Sinatra?" She didn't finish, didn't need to. Helen's heart broke. "Sweetheart, Mr. Sinatra is very busy. He doesn't know us." "I know, but I love his music. When I listen to his songs, I don't feel sick. I just feel happy." Helen wiped her eyes. "I'll try, baby, I'll try." Robert Carter wrote a letter, addressed it to Frank Sinatra, care of Reprise Records, explained who Emily was, what she was going through, her final wish. He mailed it, never heard back. Helen called Reprise Records, got transferred 6 times, finally reached someone who said, "Ma'am, Mr. Sinatra gets hundreds of these requests. I'm very sorry about your daughter, but there's nothing we can do." They tried everything, called radio stations, wrote to newspapers. Nothing worked. By December 17th, Emily had maybe 3 days left. She was sleeping most of the time. When she was awake, she was in pain. Helen and Robert sat in the waiting room, exhausted, defeated. "We tried," Robert said. "We did everything we could." Helen nodded. "I know. It's just it was the one thing she asked for. The one thing." At 11:15 p.m. that night, Frank Sinatra walked through the emergency room entrance of Cedars-Sinai Hospital, alone. No entourage, no photographers, just him, wearing a long coat and fedora. The night security guard looked up. "Sir, visiting hours are over." "I'm not visiting. I'm here for Emily Carter, pediatric critical care." The guard blinked. "Mr. Sinatra." "That's right. Where's pediatric critical care?" "Sir, you can't just walk in there. It's a quarantine unit. No unauthorized." "I'm authorized. By Emily. She asked to see me. I'm here." "Mr. Sinatra, I need to call my supervisor." "You do that. But I'm going to pediatric critical care. You can stop me or you can help me. Your choice." The guard hesitated, then picked up the phone. Within 5 minutes, the hospital administrator on duty arrived. A man named Dr. Philip Rothman. He'd been woken up at home, told Frank Sinatra was in the emergency room demanding to see a patient. "Mr. Sinatra, I understand you want to help, but we have strict protocols." "I know about your protocols. I also know a 7-year-old girl is dying upstairs, and her last wish is to meet me. I'm here. I'm not leaving until I see her. The quarantine rules exist for a reason. Emily's immune system is compromised. Any infection, then I'll wear whatever you need me to wear. Mask, gloves, gown, whatever. But I'm seeing that girl tonight. Dr. Rothman looked at Frank, saw the determination, knew he wasn't leaving. If we allow this, you follow every rule. Exactly. No exceptions. Agreed. They took Frank to a prep room, made him scrub his hands for 5 minutes, put on a surgical mask, gloves, a sterile gown, then led him to Emily's room. Helen and Robert were sitting beside Emily's bed when the door opened. A nurse came in. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, there's someone here to see Emily. Helen looked up, confused. Who? Frank walked in. Even with the mask and gown, Helen recognized him immediately. Oh my God, she whispered. Robert stood up. Mr. Sinatra. Frank nodded, walked to Emily's bedside. The little girl was sleeping, pale, so small in the hospital bed. How is she? Frank asked quietly. Helen's voice broke. The doctors say maybe 2 days, maybe less. Frank sat in the chair beside the bed. Can I stay for a while? Of course, of course. I can't believe you're here. We wrote letters, made calls. I know. I got your husband's letter yesterday. My secretary found it in a pile of mail. Soon as I read it, I called the hospital. They said no visitors allowed, so I came. Anyway, Frank looked at Emily. Her breathing was shallow, labored. He reached out, gently took her small hand. Emily, he said softly. Emily, can you hear me? Emily's eyes flickered, opened slightly, focused on the masked face above her. Who? Her voice was barely a whisper. My name is Frank, Frank Sinatra. Your mom and dad told me you wanted to meet me. Emily's eyes went wide. Really, really. Tears started falling down Emily's face. You came. Of course I came. Couldn't leave a fan waiting, could I? I love your music. It makes me feel better. Frank's voice was thick with emotion. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. Will you sing for me? Frank looked at Helen and Robert. They nodded through their own tears. Frank cleared his throat, and there, in a quarantined hospital room at midnight, wearing a surgical mask and gown, Frank Sinatra sang. He sang Fly Me to the Moon, softly, gently, like a lullaby. Emily closed her eyes, smiled. For the first time in weeks, she looked peaceful. When Frank finished, Emily whispered, that was beautiful. You want to hear another one? Yes please. Frank sang The Way You Look Tonight, then Young at Heart, then High Hopes. Emily fell asleep halfway through the 4th song, but Frank kept singing, because Helen and Robert needed it too, needed something beautiful in this terrible room. When Frank finally stopped, it was past 1 a.m. Emily was sleeping peacefully, the first peaceful sleep she'd had in days. Frank stood up, walked to the door with Helen and Robert. Thank you, Helen sobbed. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I couldn't get here sooner. You're here now, that's what matters. You gave her the one thing she wanted. Frank pulled out his wallet, took out several $100 bills. For Emily, whatever she needs, medicine, comfort, whatever. Robert tried to refuse. Mr. Sinatra, we can't. Yes, you can. Please, let me do this. Robert took the money, broke down completely. Frank put his hand on Robert's shoulder. You're good parents. The best. Emily's lucky to have you. Before Frank left, he spoke to Dr. Rothman. That girl in there, she's dying because she got a disease she didn't deserve. But tonight, for 1 hour, she wasn't a patient. She was a kid who got to meet her hero. That mattered. That gave her something good before the end. Mr. Sinatra, hospital policy. Your policy almost prevented that. Almost kept a dying child from her last wish. You need to change that policy. It's complicated. Quarantine protocols exist for medical reasons. I understand medical reasons, but there's also human reasons. Sometimes you need to bend the rules for something that matters more. Dr. Rothman was quiet for a moment. You're right, I'll bring it to the board. Emily Carter died 3 days later, December 20th, 1963. Peaceful, surrounded by her parents. Her last words were, tell Mr. Sinatra, thank you. Frank paid for the funeral, sent flowers, and included a note. Emily taught me that sometimes the most important thing you can do is break a rule for the right reason. She'll be missed. 2 weeks later, Cedars-Sinai Hospital changed its visitor policy, created a new provision: terminal patients could request special visits from anyone, including celebrities, if it provided comfort. The medical team would work to accommodate these requests safely. They called it Emily's exception. Over the next 50 years, hundreds of dying children got to meet their heroes because of that policy change. Athletes, musicians, actors, all because Frank Sinatra had broken the rules for one little girl. In 1998, when Frank died, Cedars-Sinai held a memorial service for staff. Dr. Rothman, retired by then, spoke. Frank Sinatra did a lot of great things in his life, but one of the greatest happened in this hospital. In 1963, he showed up at midnight, refused to leave, broke our rules, and reminded us that medicine isn't just about protocols, it's about humanity. Emily Carter lived 3 more days after Frank's visit, but those days were different. She died knowing she mattered enough for someone to break the rules for her. That's a gift we should all hope to give. Helen and Robert Carter never remarried after Emily died, couldn't imagine starting over, but they dedicated their lives to children's hospitals, volunteering, fundraising, making sure other parents had support. In 2015, Helen was interviewed by a hospital newsletter. What do you remember most about that night? The way Frank sang, Helen said. He wasn't performing, he was comforting. His voice was softer than on his records, gentler, like he understood this wasn't about him. It was about Emily, about giving her one perfect moment before the end. What would you say to Frank if you could? Helen's eyes filled with tears. I'd say thank you for seeing my daughter, really seeing her, not as a dying patient, not as a charity case, but as a little girl who loved his music. Thank you for being brave enough to break the rules when the rules were wrong. Frank Sinatra broke hospital rules for a dying girl. What happened next changed everything, not just for Emily, for every terminal child who came after her. Because Frank showed Cedars-Sinai that sometimes compassion matters more than policy, that sometimes the most important medical intervention isn't a drug or procedure, it's humanity, it's showing up, it's singing 4 songs at midnight, in a quarantine room, because a 7-year-old asked you to. Emily's exception is still in effect at Cedars-Sinai today, expanded to other hospitals across the country, all because Frank Sinatra refused to take no for an answer. All because he understood that rules exist to protect people, but sometimes protecting people means breaking the rules.